We're live. Hello, friends, family, and other peoples of the peeps and rows and stuff. Obviously, my camera is in the wrong display for some reason. Don't know why. So instead, we're gonna move to the other one. And there we go. We're hanging out here in the writer's room. I'm here joined with Bob. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. Exciting news. I go to my job later today, which I'm working night shifts, so that's gonna be fun. But in the meantime, I noticed, like I said to you before we started, I have not streamed anything for a while, so I should probably do that. And some stuff to talk about. How has your week been? Anything interesting or new going on? Any new projects or anything?
I've been kind of playing around doing some more Halo stuff, trying to eventually maybe flesh something out for an RPG style like Dark Heresy. We'll see what happens.
Very cool.
Yeah. Aside from that, not a whole lot, unfortunately. Be on vacation for a week next week, so that'll be fun.
Nice. Definitely some cool stuff there. Well, I have something to bring up, I guess. I've told you a little bit about it, but I put out my module into Hell for Battletech this week. So far, so good. Definitely go check it out. It's on Drive-Thru RPG. It is a fun Succession Wars style module following a unit that is created through a custom percentage that revolves around the Hellhounds during the Succession Wars and what happens to them and how they end up where they end up. And you don't play as the Hellhounds themselves, but rather a unit that is associated with them and has some members who will interact with them. So it's a fun time. So far so good on the module, but I'm doing some updates to it coming at the end of the month, and every month for the rest of the year I'm doing errata updates for it, since it's pretty much a playtest module. And the money that you use to purchase it is, you know, a lifetime of updates essentially for the module for a year. Yeah. And then I'll do ones every 6 months after the first year.
Yeah, all in all, that seems like a good schedule.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting, and come February, I will be publishing the light novel series that I have going that actually is tied into that module as well. And then I'll be working on the next module, which will be a clan invasion module. So that should be fun.
Remember, kids, the appropriate way to say hello to clanners is with artillery.
Exactly. But anyways,
Although,
yeah.
Probably better ones.
We decided to go with Star Wars today. Since
you are still trying to go through the Imperial Agent and all the fun that's there.
Yeah. It's definitely a good time. The Imperial Agent is a really fun storyline, and it's kind of a good thing to bring up in the writer's room, because we've talked about this a little bit before, but let's actually get into it a little bit. Old BioWare, back when they were doing this, made some really amazing stuff. And this is no doubt one of their better works. To be perfectly honest, for an MMO, it's some of the best MMO writing I've seen ever. Just hands down.
Hit or miss. I would say like some stuff like Imperial Agent, Bounty Hunter definitely falls that way for me. I have a really hard time getting through Jedi Counselor.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do, but like, just like there's good, there's always bad, obviously. There are mediocre parts to every book and novel. You just get through it and you don't even notice half the time. When it comes to video games, it's a little bit different because you're actually investing time into a character to do something with it. It definitely changes how it feels, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Imperial Asian has been one of my favorites so far, and if anybody hasn't played through any of these storylines, I highly recommend you do, because number one, Star Wars: The Old Republic is a great game.
And is still ongoing and is fairly cheap to play, which is nice.
Yeah, it's got a great free-to-play environment. In addition to that, they don't hate Star Wars. Let's just be fair. They don't actually hate it, and everybody else does. I'm looking at you, Ryan Johnson.
Oh boy, it's also one of the only places that you can still get the old EU stuff.
Yeah, and you can play around with ideas that are definitely more expanded universe style, and it gives a lot more range of options, and gives some really interesting lore to stuff. Makes interesting characters. Some of the most famous being like Revan.
Oh yeah. There's also a decent amount of role-playing you can do if that's your thing.
Yeah, it's a great role-playing game, especially for those who like the Star Wars universe. You know, like if you can't get your Harry Potter roleplay in, you can at least get your Star Wars in. Because nobody will quite cancel you for that. At least not yet. Speak now, forever hold your peace, obviously. Yeah, it's a good time. I highly recommend the game. But, you know, coming back around to that BioWare thing, like, what happened to them? What do you think happened that made BioWare do what it did?
I would honestly say a combination of being bought out by EA, which I'm not going to blame EA for everything that happened, just a fair bit. But they're also really easy to blame for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then, well, a lot of their guys, well, the old writing team especially, they basically just moved on to either other projects, other organizations. A couple of them, Drew Karpyshyn being the main one, ended up banding together to essentially form their own studio, which is making another sci-fi RPG. So I'm looking forward to that whenever that comes out.
Oh, what RPG is that?
I don't think they have a name yet. I'll have to go find it. Drew Karpyshyn was the lead writer on Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2. He also wrote the first 3 accompanying novels.
Very cool.
Casey Hudson's still with BioWare, I think, but he's more of a manager now.
Fair enough.
I may be wrong. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, honestly, I think most of the old writing staff just kind of went separate ways, and those who followed on before them just kind of fell flat, unfortunately.
Yeah. I know that a lot of the writing staff on Old Republic are definitely still the same, though.
Yeah, on Old Republic, a lot of them are still very similar.
Yeah, it's very much like they haven't changed a whole lot. That's why they keep making good content, because, well, they actually want to make good content. Let's be fair.
Yeah. Drew Karpyshyn apparently also has a Kickstarter out. Time Kings of Las Vegas, that's the thing.
Okay. That definitely sounds interesting.
Okay. Yeah, he got signed with Archetype Entertainment, which, if I remember correctly, has a bunch of other former BioWare writers kind of banding together.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we'll see what comes of that.
So, in speaking of games and the interesting implications of them, what is your favorite RPG system?
So, personally, I'm going to have to go with Dark Heresy.
Dark Heresy. Alright, cool. Why?
So, a combination of how the actual mechanics work. Dark Heresy kind of gets a bad rep. Well, not even a bad rep. It has a reputation for being extremely brutal, which it is, to be fair. But you can mitigate a lot by just thinking things through.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a user error kind of issue?
Yeah, it takes a while to get used to, and then just adjusting to it also has a thing where as you raise your skill, so for example, you have ballistic skill of 40, you have to roll a number under 40 on a D100 in order to hit effectively.
Okay.
And as you raise that, you raise your threshold, and so on and so forth, which is pretty useful. You can, yeah.
It's definitely a simple mechanic.
Yeah, but by and large, preparation and just thinking things through helps you a lot. It also encourages you to roleplay. You really don't want to kick down that door. You want to lure the enemies out of the door.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you can,
So definitely a more tactical game.
Yeah. That's a big part of the reason why I like it a lot.
It's Lord,
how about you?
Lord Marijuana there. Yeah, that's the other guy's name over here. It's quite funny. For me, it's hard to say. I've played a lot of different systems, but I feel like I'm still so new to so many different things. One I really enjoyed, though, is the One Ring system. I actually very much enjoyed playing that one. And for anybody who tries to cancel me about it, it's definitely different. It's definitely a different kind of game. It's definitely more home with the more classical style dungeon crawl. And dungeon crawls are like my thing. I love dungeon crawls. So, to be fair, it just kind of filled that niche void for me. On the flip side, however, the parts that made me most interested in it were its travel and maintenance mechanics, essentially, of how to deal with expeditions and like what you were doing, how much resources you were using up. It definitely made it a lot more interesting in terms of like, hey, I have to be aware of what I'm doing and how I'm using it. Those mechanics can definitely get lost in translation, and even a system that I enjoy very much and I like to play very often, the Time of War system, does a pretty poor job at that. Because its maintenance mechanics are very, very convoluted in some ways and need some simplification. In terms of just like, you don't need to make it granular for every little thing. There are some things you can just do in a roll.
Yeah. It's one of those things where abstraction is better in a lot of cases. I love looking at spreadsheets, but I do enough of that at work.
Yeah, and I enjoy the same thing. I actually like being able to, game, to really, what is it? I guess power game it. I don't necessarily want to call it a power gaming move, because it's not. It's not really a power game thing to want to play your game optimally. Before anybody cancels me about that either. Actually, I don't give a shit. Power gaming isn't wrong. End of story.
I feel like since we've done it 3 times now, anytime you say cancel about anything, you need to take a drink.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. You're so right. I'm gonna drink water, however, because I'm gonna be a good boy.
I have alcohol, so yeah.
Yeah, you can do a little better than me. If I had vodka, I'd stick it in my my filtered water bottle, and then it'd be more interesting.
Oh dear.
It'd still be alcoholic, but it wouldn't taste like alcohol. It tastes like the flavor of the vodka.
I was about to say.
It's a really weird thing. Believe it or not, I saw it on TikTok.
Oh boy.
And I was like, alright, that sounds really dumb. But then I saw like 6 other people do it in a row. And I was like, no, this is a real thing, isn't it?
Alright, so I am glad to know that all I need to do in order to convince you to do something is get other people to do it where you can see it.
Yes, I am a gullible idiot in that sense.
I'll most certainly not take advantage of this. How much can I bribe Cal for to do things again?
But yeah, gosh, it's just like, I don't know. It's a constant thing when people talk about like, oh well, you know, your power gaming ruins games because you can't roleplay. I'm like, no, that's not true. It's a matter of the players at the table wanting to roleplay and you giving them story hooks to be able to use to roleplay with. It's got nothing to do. It's one of the biggest misnomers I think everybody comes across in terms of their first time GMing. It's like, you're not going to have amazing roleplay until your players are invested enough to want to roleplay. Like, there's just no way.
And that takes a while.
And don't be upset about it. Don't be upset if they're like, hey, I'm too new to this. I'm inexperienced, and I really just kind of want to play the game and figure it out as it goes. Like, I'm not gonna maybe participate as much in roleplay aside from, you know, saying a couple lines. The way you interest those people is giving them something they can work with. Being able to actually talk to them like a real person and being like, yo, you know, like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. Hopefully this is interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of something you have to work up to, unfortunately. I guess there's a decent balance of making your own fun with it, but then also trying to play off other players and then whatever the GM provides.
So it's actually one-shot time. So it's time for me to go do a Solaris one-shot.
Oh, nice.
So I'll be gone for the next 2 hours. But in the meantime, we actually got to talk about something interesting.
Yeah.
We'll definitely pick back up on this topic later, but something to talk about for next time is about power gaming and how people feel about it. Power gaming is not a bad thing, people. It's just your players wanting to play optimally to the game mechanics you provide them. It's okay to put stuff in for flavor or for roleplay, but also don't be surprised when somebody is trying to game the system and actually use it how it's intended. It's how it's intended. You shouldn't be surprised by it. It's about working with your story and making it interesting enough that your players are willing to invest in it regardless of how they play the game. But that's my 2 cents. Anything else to add, Bob?
No, not right now.
Alrighty, with that, we will go ahead and end there, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.